Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Abracadabra, Create What You Speak, with iLan Azoulai, only on LA Talk Radio.
את רואה, כל החדר שקוף, אין אוויר כבדה הנשימה. התנועה היא התדר בגוף שמביא את הנחמה. העיניים נפגשות, נשמות מתלחשות, והדרך בעירה. מתחת לשמיכה נדבר עד הזריחה, שמש מאירה. את רואה, כבר אמרתי הכל, את חושפת את סודותיי. את טועה, לא העזתי לשאול, את אמרת זה יותר מדי. העיניים נפגשות, נשמות מתלחשות, והכל כואב פחות. השמיים רחוקים והמים עמוקים, ולומדים לשחות. את רואה, עוד מעט ונגמר, בוקר בא ואת לצידי. את טועה, לא נשארת אמר, במרחב אושר מיידי. העיניים נפגשות, נשמות מתלחשות, והדרך בעירה. כאן מתחת לשמיכה, ובחוץ כבר הזריחה, שמש מאירה. את רואה, כל החדר שקוף והצליל נחלש, כשאני נרגש. עוד פציעה אל התדר שבגוף, מרחב חדש.
Hello, welcome, shalom to Abracadabra, Create What You Speak. I'm iLan Azoulai. I'm a spiritual mentor, sound therapist, and a guide for you who are ready to reclaim your power, to remember your gifts and to bring them out to the world with love and far away from fear. And this program is an empowerment program to bring guests that have their gifts to show to the world, to encourage each one of us to look into ourselves, to look into what we're really made out of, and to be in one, to be in unity with our energetic field and the energetic field of Earth, of everything around us. So this is really an exciting opportunity and a blessing for me to be able to do that. So thank you for being here. And today I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Rebecca Dawson. She's an international channeler, speaker, and author based in Perth, Australia. We're actually talking to her. Now she'll be in Australia, who has been in practice for more than 25 years after facilitating over 2,000 private consultations. And Rebecca's focus in the last 7 years has been on the research and understanding of the shifts that are occurring on Earth, for Earth and humanity. An ability to acutely observe the human energy field has led to an interest in the mapping and documenting of the changes occurring in the human energy field, and understanding how these changes impact upon human capacity, functionality, and experience of life. Rebecca is now devoted to bringing this information into accessibility so that humanity can start to have a conscious understanding of what is happening, why it is happening, and what can be created from this emerging capacity. After 25 years of relaying this information to humanity, there is a renewed urgency, according to the masters whom Rebecca is channeling through. Humanity is in the midst of making a massive consciousness shift that is becoming more evident daily. A shift that will have us living and experiencing life from that place of totality, oneness, not from duality, not from separation, but coming together. That separation that has marked our current reality, it's time for it to say bye-bye. So her new book, The Agreement, has been written to help us ease into that place of highly elevated conscious awareness and prepare us to undertake this shift. It's a roadmap for embracing life from this new level of cosmic mind. I'm really pleased to have Rebecca here. Hi, Rebecca. If you can just unmute yourself, let me that. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. You have such a beautiful voice.
Oh, well, thank God. I didn't do anything, I promise. Thank God I didn't do anything. Well, the thing is, it resonates when it's right, you know. For throughout my life, I've been speaking truths that were not really truths, that were truths that appeared to be truths. They were just a facade of something. So there wasn't authenticity. And over the years, as I've started doing this work and involving in all kind of bringing awareness to people and working through this program and other things, I started recognizing the gifts and what I'm here to use them for or with. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Rebecca, it's an interesting point about the naming of the book. And here's the thing: there is just to show a comparison, because you're saying that the agreement is really when we are, and this is something that we're talking about, but this when we are in alignment and in authenticity with ourselves, the world is in agreement with us.
Yes.
Right? It's an agreement. Basically, it's like this program is called Abracadabra, create what you speak. Abracadabra in Aramaic, it comes from Aramaic. It says literally, I create as I speak. Abracadabra. And this is what it is all about. When we are creating this energetic field of coming from an understanding, then everything is in agreement with us. There was another book that is called The Four Agreements. I don't know if you heard about that.
I haven't read that, no.
It's a small book by Don Miguel Ruiz. And it's actually talking about the agreements that we make with ourselves that are creating this false sense of reality, like taking things personally and all this kind of. And what you're saying is the same thing, but it's on the positive side. Not looking at what we created, which is also needed, to looking at the positive side. That when we change our thought, when we change the way that we look at things, and it's many times easier said than done, then everything aligns up.
And it really puts us in a position of knowing who we are as creators, as cosmic creator beings. The human capacity is incredible, but we spend so much of our focus and our time and our diligence and our efforts in trying to align ourselves with what we see as beyond us, rather than being so clear about who we are in essence
Mm-hmm.
that everything starts to agree with us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's such an incredible reinstatement for the divine nature of humanity, and the divine nature of humanity, we understand when we start spiritual inquiry and spiritual practice, but we don't really live from it. There's so much repositioning that humans do to try to align with where we want to go, with the pathways that are already set, rather than having life align with us and our divine nature.
So basically, you're saying that maybe I'm hearing you not correct. What you're saying is we shouldn't try to live where we want to be, just be where we are now. Is that what
Well,
you're
I
saying?
think it's really, it can be problematic when we have this notion of what's available in life and what do we want to
Mm.
move towards. And I think this happens, we see this very early in our education systems, for example. What do you
Mm-hmm.
want to be?
Mm-hmm.
What are the goalposts? What are we aiming for? And unfortunately, all of those references for what we're aiming for, they already exist.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
right. It's
as
trying to
divine,
fit us into a frame.
of course, they're already
Yes.
there. They've already been done. They've already been divine. They've already been lived and
Mm-hmm.
decided. And so we find ourselves as humans in cycles of repetition of experience. And
Mm-hmm.
when we're repeating things, we're trying to perfect them. And we're not really creating anything
That's
new.
right. That's right. That's a good point to remember, to look at.
So when we begin to lean into the divine essence of ourselves, we start to honor what is arising in this moment. And we
Mm.
start to make decisions based on that
Mm.
instead of compromising that vision for what's currently available.
So
And I,
improvising.
right. And I
Yeah.
think we see this, in younger generations of kids now who don't know what they want to be. They don't, or
That's
they're
right.
rejecting what's currently available.
Right.
It's time for new things, new references, new roles, new identities for
Yeah.
humanity.
This is beautiful because I meet many people that are channelers and they bring divine information. I've experienced many things, but I didn't write a book yet. But it's interesting how everything funnels really into the same place. It is really the same place, and when you have thousands of people from all across the world talking about the same things, and they didn't hear about anybody, so they didn't have like a concoction kind of thing. Hey, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. Then that is, it also feels right. It feels right. It feels. It's not just like an immediate gratification. It's just like when something fits into a, I don't know, like a wheel, like a jigsaw puzzle. When it fits,
And that's the agreement.
that is the
It's
agreement.
you can't argue with it, you can't negotiate with it. It
Yeah.
is what it is. And I think one of the greatest challenges we have as humans that are conditioned and taught to think critically is we don't agree with ourselves.
Mm.
Everything that arises from us, what is this? Let's analyze it. How do we resolve it? How do we change it? How do we improve it?
How do we
When
make it like look like something?
of course, rather
Yeah,
than
yeah.
I am in total agreement with how I am in this moment, with what is arising for me.
So, for example, somebody is going through a physical ailment at a certain point, and I see everything has a reason. Everything has a reason, and everything physical here has a spiritual reason and cause. It's like a car and a driver. The car won't move without a driver. The driver is the essence of getting the car from A to B. So, there's somebody's going through a physical ailment. It is kind of hard to tell a person, or a grief or a loss. It is kind of hard to tell a person, and it's harsh. Everything is for a reason.
It is,
You know.
and a lot of what we do in seminars and write about in the last few years is how do we move beyond that paradigm, even of cause and effect. Because while it can be very helpful to help us navigate out of a particular situation, it can also, in my view, bring us back into a loop of rationale where we're trying to solve the problem of what's happening. Because if we look for the cause,
Yeah.
we're starting to look at how do we resolve it quite
That's right.
often. And just in my own case, because I'm always pretty transparent, I've just had a heart attack a week ago.
Yeah, you just told me that.
Yeah.
Thank God that you're
And
here and that you're well.
yes, well, I exist. It made me really clear that I exist. And it was, what was interesting is that although it was quite a major heart attack, at no point did I have any fear about the outcome. And it's been very interesting going through the medical process of diagnostics and what causes this and how do we prevent it from happening again. Because I'm quite young to be having a heart attack.
You are. But again, sorry to interrupt you, but was it easier for you to say, I know there is a reason for that?
Well, what's interesting is I actually moved beyond looking for the cause and the effect, which is what I believe is of most assistance to me at this time.
Yeah.
Because instead of getting into that loop of cause and effect, prevention, and how can we stop this from happening again, I'm sitting in the space of this is a complete experience. It's in its totality.
Yeah.
It's doing what it needs to do. And being in total agreement with it.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in agreement with it, there's a sense of completion with it that then allows me to now what is available in the next moment. Now what is emerging? Now what is emerging?
This is
rather than a process or a chain of events.
Yes. It's trying to fit, again, like we said in the beginning, trying to fit it into something that you're familiar with. Oh, where does that fit? Why did I get a heart attack? I got a heart attack because of A, B, C, D. Instead of saying, I have here, there is something I need to see about this. There's something that I'm missing. It's like going into a computer game and running from the first level right away to the door of the second level. And you won't be able to get in because you have to pick up everything that is in the first level in order to cross to the second level. So there's something that I'm missing, something that I'm not seeing. And it is what you're talking about is like standing talking about the endless possibilities. We are standing in the middle of an ocean that is endless possibilities. We can just, however we do that. And when we are thinking about this, we're creating a little pool instead of the ocean.
I love the way you say that. And that really is bringing all of my focus to one moment.
Yeah.
And when all of our consciousness is in one moment, that's when miracles happen. That's when new things are birthed. Because we're not so busy looking at what comes next or what happened before this. You're totally present and in agreement right now. My heart has stopped. And I'm having a heart attack. And
you're wonderful for being here. Thank God for you.
And this is interesting. I'm in agreement with what is happening. And because of that, there's no fear and there's an opportunity for life to reveal itself.
Wow.
So I'm seeing it as a creation experience.
Yeah. So when did you move, or what was your breaking point, if you will, from recognizing that path of a different way of understanding, a different way of seeing? When was that breaking point for you?
I think it's been very gradual. I mean, I've had experiences of what many people would call, I guess, very awake or conscious experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they've lasted for several days, sometimes just a moment, sometimes a few hours. And I've had those intermittently throughout my life. And once that happens for you, it's very difficult to forget. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. But that doesn't mean to say that I'm still not deeply embedded in a system of human experience.
Of course.
So of course I move in and out of that. That's the human experience. It's a dualistic one. I think for me, in recent years, it's been the frustration of regular application of effort not bringing results.
Okay, say again. So you had a regular application of effort and you didn't bring any results?
Not bringing any results.
Okay.
And I hear this from a lot of people around the world. And this is part of the documentation of these changes of system that we've been doing. It's when you're doing the same things that used to work, but they don't work anymore.
That's part of the old paradigm. That's part of the old paradigm. Yeah.
Right. And like yourself, probably I grew up with the belief and understanding that the more effort you put in, the more results that you get.
Well, for me, it was indoctrinated. My father was a chief of police. So it was like, you have to get a job. You have to go to this. No, music is not good for you. I started as a musician. No. You got to do all these kind of things to get a job and be secured in that. And in the old days, there was a job security kind of thing. People would be in a job for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like today, like everybody can get fired on the fly, like you're gone and go sue me, and it's that it's the way of thinking. It's the way of thinking about our experience. Maybe your parents as well. I know my parents, it was a very indoctrinated. These were people that were needed to build a country. I come from Israel.
Yes.
You couldn't build a country if you were thinking like us. You needed to be focused totally on building a country and getting things done on a practical level, on a very practical level. And if you were an esoteric, forget, no country.
And what's the big key word in that paradigm? It's sacrifice.
In the old paradigm, that's right.
Work hard now, reap the rewards later.
That's
Except
right.
you never really get there.
That's right. You see, it's not a sacrifice today. I see it like an investment. And yet the word investment is part of the old paradigm.
It is.
Even
it's
that
a very
word.
clever remarketing, in my view.
What was that?
It's a very clever way of remarketing sacrifice, in my view.
Exactly. Well, hey. Well, we can talk about that. No, but what I liked about the sentence that you said, when all these experiences happened for you, and this is a key. And when you kind of brushed it as a natural, because that's how you speak and you understand that things don't happen to us. Things don't happen to us. Things happen for us, because everything that is happening is an opportunity for me, for you, for us to see what's the possibility rather than how can we fit it in. So it's happening for us. It's not happening to me. Why did you do this to me? Like when somebody in a relationship,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Nobody's doing anything on purpose unless they're really malicious or vicious or whatever. Sometimes my English is... but it's not to them, it's for them. And this is what I want everybody to pay attention to, how you're speaking, because I really like your eloquence in speaking at the and then the words that you choose, because it's happening for us.
Yes.
Yeah, that is
or we could go one step further and say it's happening through us, because we are the center of our experience and the center of our reality.
Well, yeah,
and all of consciousness flows through us to generate life.
Yeah, that is correct. That is beautiful. Yeah, and so we were talking about the experience of that the personal experience, where in the past, in the old paradigm, we would think that the more conscious we become, I think you're talking about this in the video, the more conscious we become, the more separated we are. But it's really the other way around. The more conscious we become, the more unified we are, striving to get to the wholeness of the one. I mean, we live in duality. We live in this is the world, duality, It's that's this existence here. Like indigenous tribes, they're still in the oneness. Do you think, is it because of the language? Because language is removing us another generation away from our bodily experience, because we're using language and we're using talk. This is how we make meaning.
Yes, I love the way you're bringing language into this conversation. I think a lot of people don't think about that enough, and how that relates to sound. Because our language, as it has developed over the years, is being used more and more to define the belief systems that we sit in, rather than the truth of the vibration of what the words represent. And I think that in some of the original indigenous languages, the value of the language is about communicating a vibration or an essence of possibility, an essence of creation. And this is why sound is so important. I mean, you even think the way that we communicate electronically these days, we're not really using the vibration and the resonance of our voices to communicate as much, and how many people don't like the sound of their own voice.
Yeah. It's not even
Because,
getting the, yeah.
yeah, because when we speak the truth, it's undeniable.
When we believe in the truth, it comes across. We can speak the truth till we're blue in the face. But if we're not in one with it, remember I was telling you, I would be, in past years, I would just talk things and I wouldn't come into the understanding of my voice or things that I would say. That's because I wasn't fully there. So I could feel I could feel a wind goes between what I say and what it is. Like there is like a little kind of thing.
So with sound, there was a very interesting seminar that we ran a couple of months ago, and it's talked about a little bit in the book. Actually, the last chapter is about sound, and I've never really thought about sound too much, to be honest. I know I have a lot of friends who are sound therapists, but I've never really dived into it too much. And what was shared with us from the channeling with the masters is that outside of this earth reality, because we have a very particular set of constructs for how things work here. They're quite unusual.
Yeah, we do.
Outside of that, it's understood that sound precedes light. And this is why, there have been scriptures and writings that have said that in the beginning there was the word, because the vibration of sound is what then creates the form.
The world. In 10 utterances, the world was created. Yeah.
And to me, that was just fascinating to hear that and to understand it. I think it will, as we move forward into our new earth reality, redefine language and how we choose to communicate.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And sound is a very crucial, and that's what I've been doing since I was since I started as a musician, and then 10 years ago moving into naturally working with sound, with vibration, with Tibetan bowls, with frequencies, voice, speech, because that is really that's what we're made of. We're made out of frequencies. Every part of our body is a frequency. Our physical body and our spiritual body is a frequency.
Yeah.
Sound, 10 utterances. What was the first sentence that God said when he walked into the room? Let it be light. Vayhi or, right? And you, by the way, can tell a lot about a person just by the first sentence they walk into a room. So you know that God is light. So how did your family, let's go back to the basics. You started your human experience. Yeah. Your human experience.
My human experience.
Your human.
Well,
so, how did your parents, how did your family receive that? I mean, were you afraid? Were you skeptic? What was it?
Well, I was raised in quite a conservative family, and I mean, I'm born and raised in Perth, Australia, and we are the most isolated capital city in the world. So it was a very simple childhood and lots of nature around, and back in the day where kids were largely unsupervised and we were left to our own devices. So my background history with my family is Catholic. And I was raised in the Catholic Church, but from quite a young age, I could see energy fields and I could see other aspects of consciousness, people that had passed away.
Did you know what it was at the time?
Yes.
Like now you give it a name, now you give it a language, but at that time, did you know, it's different sides of consciousness? Yeah?
Yes, it was very obvious to me. It was just frustrating that nobody else could perceive what I could perceive. And I was very fortunate because my mother was aware of what I was experiencing. And so she actually got me involved quite early on. There was a small group of the Theosophical Society in Perth at that time. And I started, meditation classes and things at quite a young age. So that was helpful because it made me realize that it was okay to be experiencing what I was experiencing and it had some validity to it. What I did struggle with the most, however, was all of the rules and regulations and sense of hierarchy and process that was required in order to validate those experiences. And I think particularly because I started channeling at such a young age, I think I was 17 or 18 when that spontaneously happened, and it was not encouraged. I'd already sort of moved out of any kind of organized structure of spirituality by then. It wasn't encouraged. I was considered to be too young, not experienced enough, hadn't earned my way there, didn't know enough. And it did take me a long time of trying and failing to find a mentor or a teacher to take me under their wing. Because as you can understand, I mean, if you're spontaneously channeling, and I wasn't just spontaneously channeling little bits, I was spontaneously channeling
Chunks.
an hour's worth of content about something that I knew nothing about. You really want to know that it's okay.
As a kid in your age, for sure.
Of course. And my experience was that there was no validation and there was no real encouragement there. And of course, now I can see in hindsight how perfect that was, because I had to go through an experience for 10 or 15 years where the only person that could validate that was myself.
So how did you get to that? What was to realize, because that's at the age 17, to come to the place of self-validation without the need of an external influence.
Right.
At that age, affected by school and by that age.
Yeah.
That's pretty
it was tough.
hard.
I went traveling for a bit. I was at university. I'd started off in architecture and I was studying pretty hard and I was working in a firm, and once this started to really take off for me, and I didn't have control at that time, so it would happen quite spontaneously in sometimes the most inconvenient places.
Today, can you summon when you feel it?
Oh yes. Well, it's just my understanding of channeling now is completely different from how it was before. So it's a part of me. And
I see.
There's not a lot of distinction or separation as much anymore.
Yeah. I mean, naturally you grow with that. You naturally grow and you understand what, yeah, for sure. That's, So go ahead.
So I think that going out on my own and learning to trust what was happening and trust in myself was important. I did go away. I lived overseas on and off for quite a while and had a lot of different jobs and tried to find my place and got married and had a kid and did all of the usual stuff, because I decided I had a little deal that I made when I was about 23 and it was just becoming so full on. I'd be in the middle of a restaurant or a pub and all of a sudden, something would start.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, were there specific actions that you were doing or specific emotional states that you were in that suddenly would come?
It was usually about who I was with.
So somebody would trigger it for you.
If there was something that was there for them, boom, it would start.
Gotcha.
And that was pretty uncomfortable.
So when you're talking to somebody, if that person needs to get something, it'll come.
Yes.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And bearing in mind too, you're self-conscious when you're a young person, and you're very aware of how strange this might look, or maybe they don't want to hear this information. So that was interesting. And it's taken me a long time to get past the self-consciousness of being a channeler. I would say really it was only when I got to my mid-30s that I began to become okay with it. And I think that's also because the world in general begun to become okay with it. I think maybe in the United States I've come to realize that you guys are a little bit more au fait with with different sources of spiritual inquiry. Australia is a very conservative place, and it hasn't been that way here. So I've had to be very quiet.
And yet the Australian culture is, in my opinion, is way nicer than many cultures here in the US. So, I mean, how do you explain that? On the other hand, it's like, obviously somebody was doing something right.
Yes,
So yeah.
I think we have very conservative British roots in Australia. We're changing, we're changing over time, and and I think that Australians are becoming definitely uh, are awakening to the land, and I think the land here has been awakening to
Mhm.
its
Yeah.
population, and
Yeah.
vice versa in the last 15 years. So there is definitely a wonderful conscious community here in Australia, but it was very, very quiet and very, very conservative for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very falling into those rules. So
Right.
you channel what you've been told, or you call them the masters. Is that right?
Yes.
Are they are they God being like? Are they part of? Are they ETs? Are they? How would you classify them? If you
Well,
How do you call them
I
aside
wouldn't
from the
call them
masters?
PTs, and I would be very clear about that because, and this is not something that actually I ever really speak about or anyone's really asked me. But when I did start channeling first, I
Mm-hmm.
did channel a lot of everybody. But right from the beginning, I had particular streams of consciousness that have stayed with me all this time. And they had very specific names. So there was Jermaine and then Serapis and then Kuthumi who came through. But of course, that's a reference point for that
Mm-hmm.
frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And I've since, over many, many years of expressing these vibrations,
Mm-hmm.
I'll call them, there's such an expansion on those reference points. There's all of those human lives that have been embodied in that vibration
Mm,
and all of those experiences that come with
mm,
them. That's an incredible body of knowledge. And it's not just for the earth reality. There is a lot of information that we get that comes from beyond the earth reality.
mm-hmm.
It's usually presented through these masters
Mm-hmm.
so that it's more accessible for
Mm,
our current human experience. And I think that's really important because it's so important to me personally that if I'm going to be bringing information to people, that it's irrelevant for where we are right now as humans.
mm-hmm.
Because when I first started channeling, a lot of the other channeling work that I could see that was out there was really about we want to get out of here. We want to ascend. We want to go to other places. How does it work out here? What is my history? And that's fantastic to give us a bigger, broader understanding of where the earth sits in the cosmos. But for what's happening right now on the planet, it's so important to me personally that the information is relevant for where we are and our practical situation
Mm,
right now.
mm, mm.
So the challenge is, how do you take all of that view and distill it and bring it into something incredibly relevant and practical?
Yeah, that's fascinating. More than that, yes, relevant. But let's say you and I are speaking, and most of the time it's like preaching to the choir, right? And what I've noticed that a part of my bringing is to map experiences for people.
Mhm.
And so it is not about what if it's relevant, because I think everything is relevant. It's just the language that which is being conveyed through that will allow that person to understand or not. Or maybe they're not ready. So if you're meeting somebody, if I meet somebody that sees only in 7 colors, where I can see in 10 colors, right? And so you can create 7 colors from the 10 colors, but you cannot do it the other way around. So it's shrinking, it's compartmentalizing, it's putting that language into a form that that person can understand, and from that place the person can emerge. But talking to the person from being yourself, be now, be here, be feel the moment. I mean, like George Carlin once says, you think you're in the now, what? But the now went. It's not
Yes,
now gone already, right?
yes.
It's finding, it's actually matching ourselves to whom we're speaking with, to whom we're communicating with. It's more than my opinion is more than just a relevant information, because everything is relevant. If it comes to you, then it's relevant.
This is true. I think perhaps I'm referencing it to myself and I'm bringing myself back to the center of the experience and saying, I want it to be relevant to me.
I see.
Because if it's relevant to me, I'm in agreement with it.
Gotcha.
And if I'm in agreement with it, other people move into agreement with it.
Gotcha.
And that's one really big thing I've had to come to understand, because for the first 15 years or so that I was channeling, I still saw myself as separate to the information, separate to the experience, separate to the person that's sitting there. This information is for this audience. It's for this person.
I'm
It's
just a
got
channel.
nothing
I'm
to
just
do
giving
with
them the
me.
information.
I'm just a channeler.
Yeah, gotcha.
Exactly. And so now putting myself in the center of it, that's the unifying key for me.
Yeah.
And since I've really done that, and if it's interesting to me, there's joy in it.
Yes.
And there's something alchemical that happens when you put yourself at the center of the experience. And it's not selfishness, and it's not self-centeredness about the ego. It's self, capital S centeredness, where you don't separate yourself out from it.
Yeah. It's not a self. It's not a self coming from like you said, like an egoic place, because that egoic place comes from that old paradigm. If I'm talking about me, then it's an I. Then it's that kind of thing. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
True. And if it's interesting to me, I'll talk about it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that all of these years I've been putting out these, energy updates, and this is what's happening with the physical symptoms, because we did a lot of that for a long time, still do a little bit, is that's what's happening for me right now. And then I talk about it, and it's happening for everybody. So you become the center point of that reality, or as I like to call it, the barometer for the collective experience. That's a unified field of experience. There's no separation.
Yeah.
So,
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Why did you choose green for the book?
The agreement.
Green color.
Oh, green. Well, because I saw the cover, and I have to say it's very difficult sometimes when you have a vision and you're showing something and then trying to get the designer to do it exactly as you've seen it. So I'd seen this multi-dimensional green emerald tablet with this gold etching in it.
Well, that's interesting that you said green. The green is the heart chakra. And really is that where the color, the reflection of light that creates the part of the heart chakra, that is really where we connect through.
Right.
That is the unified place of connectivity, and the old paradigm really is about the mind, the separation, creating. Oh, I need to understand that. Let me compartment. So it was interesting that it's green. It's like all over.
It's the first thing green I've ever done, because I have very specific colors that I usually use for a lot of my creations. And
I can see a lot of purple with you.
A lot of purple and gold and magenta and turquoise and green. So this had to be green.
It's that esoteric colors. The level of souls. There are colors, different colors, and purple and burgundy are among the highest ones. Highest, not as far as better, just a hierarchy of colors or reflection of colors.
Well, I think, rather than one being higher than the other, each one having a slightly different signature, like keys on a keyboard. You're a musician.
Yeah, for sure. It's not. Yeah, it's not better than the other.
Yeah.
It's not better than one another. So I want to bring us to where we are today. We're in this, what I call the Quranic era. We're in a Quranic time, and there are different, people are going there. They focus on the story and focus on the this, or it's his fault, or it's that fault, or it's this. But in reality, we are here. And many times I've learned to understand that many times the why doesn't matter. The why doesn't matter. We're here. We are here. We are here at like almost a point of extinction of the purpose of why we're here.
Oh, I love that. Because my last book was called The Game of Purpose, which
Oh,
was
really?
about
Oh, you said
Dropping
in.
purpose.
Wow.
Who are we beyond purpose?
That's exactly.
I
So
love
it's like it's the extinction. It's almost like we're on the verge of extinction of our really essence and purpose here as humans. Do all of the sources are familiar with the other sources?
Well,
Like,
there's
for
only
example,
one source.
what? What?
Well, there's only one source.
Well, I mean, a source as far as source to you, your source, right?
Well, again, I think we have different, just like different notes on a keyboard, different colors in the spectrum. It's
No, I
all
get that. I get that. But for example, there are different entities that come through to different people. Now, maybe to them, they reveal as a different name because they are in a different understanding and they're in a different place. Like I was talking and receiving information from channeling through PAX. A source that is called PAX and is considered a God being like. And then there are others that are identified as ETs and they're channeling through other people. And the question is, like you were saying, they're here now because I believe we are at the brink of losing our essence. Like they were waiting to see our move. And now, okay, time to step in. But isn't stepping in interfering with our choices?
Well, I love a lot of the perspective you just brought to that, and I love your choice of words there. I'm going to reposition it slightly.
Please, yeah.
When you talk about, our identity, we're coming to the edge and the end and loss of identity and the stretching, I agree with you. But I think that what we're losing is not our essence. I think what we're losing is our false constructed individual identities. And that's what's going and that's what's dying. And what's being stretched right now is this fabric, this constructed fabric of reality that is so saturated from karmic experience. It's being done, it's being done, it's being done.
Yeah.
If you imagine it as a fabric, the fabric is being stretched and there's holes appearing in the dimensional fabric. And that's the paradigm shift from 3D to 5D and beyond.
Yeah.
So I see this actually and this gathering and look, I do have the capacity to be able to move in and out of different dimensional realities. So I'm aware of what it looks like here from other places. One of those places that I am able to view from is the Andromeda system. And there is such a great gathering at this time because the saturation is occurring and because there is a release and a return to the essence of the original blueprint of humanity, which is a creator species. So I don't see it as interference. I see it as celebration. There's a great gathering that's happening right now. And what's being stretched at this time is old belief. And what's breaking down is old system that contains who we think we are, limits what we think we can do. So I really see it as a gathering that happens at the great culmination, the great celebration. There's so much story and narrative swirling around us at this time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I always say, if you don't know what to believe, don't believe any of it.
Exactly.
And that's our great opportunity. Believe yourself.
Well, but self is a construct. I mean, you don't know. It's like hitting the door on your thumb. Your whole body becomes a thumb. It's not, oh, I just hit my thumb. That's it. It's when you're in it, you don't even know that you are in it because it appears to be so real. And so,
And yet I think that's changing.
Yeah.
Because you look out into the world now, I mean, you can look at a natural scene and it seems very real, but if you look out into the constructed reality of what the planet's doing politically or economically or socially, none of that seems terribly real right now.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, how many people are saying, I can't believe this? Exactly. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. If you don't believe it, like Yoda said, that's why you fail.
Well, you're going to fail, and we are being being asked to believe that we as a species are failing, but we as a species are not failing. The system that is being designed to limit our identity is failing.
That's right.
And we
That's true.
identify with the systems.
And the beast, the system, is scared. And when the beast is scared of losing its power, what do? They put more power. Hence the lockdowns, hence the chips, hence the in the immunization, hence the 5G, all these kind of things. I just heard today a British doctor talking about really what's in those vaccinations, which is something that I always talked about. And I said that all these everything is designed for a complete takeover by the beast, for a complete takeover of our consciousness. The next war is not boom and that's it. The next war, the war that we're in, is a war on our consciousness.
Yes.
It's a war on our
divinity. Trumps everything.
Well, I think it's just a match, like a match. Just spark the whole bush. It's really to say, who is this? I come from Israel, so I have their Netanyahu is creating a whole thing, and now it's trying to create a police state and everything, and just like a martial state and all these kind of things that are unheard of.
Well, they're doing that here in Australia. People don't realize overseas.
They're doing well.
It's really intense here. It's quite unbelievable.
And this is the thing that they're talking about in England, and going door to door, forcing you to take the tests, and then you are categorized, and then you are cataloged, and then you're in the system, and then those metals that you get through the vaccination are actually being receptors for the 5G, because those are poison metals. All these kind of things that are there. It's
interesting. If you imagine the Earth reality as almost like a holographic structure like this, and it's spherical, and the reality itself is almost like a program that requires energy in order for it to continue to exist. There's no one like the human and the divine human to release energy into something, because we're so creative. That's our blueprint. That's how we're designed. And so if you imagine a population within a simulation that's convinced to continually donate energy to it, to keep it running. Now, what happens is that as that population grows within this simulation, and as the consciousness increases and expands of that population, that human population, because we're all awakening, we're becoming more conscious. The amount of energy that's present within that reality is so expanded, it can't be contained by the system anymore.
That's right.
It's actually overriding the system.
That's right.
And so what the system does is it creates new constructs of limitation to try to contain the amount of energy in it so that it can continue to exist. Otherwise, it's like a star that's going.
So it's like it's like reverse. Like, instead of we're trying to fit ourselves into the system now is getting confused and trying to fit itself to
contain the consciousness of humanity.
Yeah.
How does it do that? It does it with fear. It does it with restriction of movement. It does it by making you continue to donate energy to it. We have to keep working. We have to keep following rules. And ultimately, you can't stop an expansion of consciousness. That's cosmic law. It's happening. That's why everything's contracting at this time, because it's a last-ditch effort to contain consciousness on the planet. Now, how else do you try and contain a consciousness on the planet? You limit the population. You try to limit the population.
And that's
because at least that can limit the amount of consciousness sitting within the system, right? Yeah. So you can, when you look at it from that perspective, you can see how it all makes sense. But I think what's valuable to understand about that particular view is that you cannot contain consciousness. It's inevitable that the structure will collapse. And I think that's why everybody's waking up. And this is our opportunity to become sovereign and understand that we can't be contained. I mean, I can tell you that it is frustrating being in Australia and not being able to leave the country and not be able to have anybody come in. The containment is everything.
Yeah.
But consciousness cannot be contained.
Yeah, during this beautifully said, during this time, during this Quranic time, it's almost like the irony is that before that, um, many of us were sucked into the technology, the phone, the iPad. I don't want to do anything with you. You're not part of my clique. You're not part of my group. I don't want anything. And now, when we kind of created that reality for ourselves, so to speak, we're realizing what is really important, what is really at the core of everything. That's the green color. That's the connectedness. That's the coming together. And this
Starting to
is
see each other again, because the
absolutely.
system is stretched. Holes begin to appear. We start to become visible to each
This is wonderful.
other.
This is
Yeah.
beautiful. Music to my ears.
Well, it's all doom and gloom if you look at a construct that's trying to keep us contained, but it's inevitable. It's
Yeah.
inevitable, and it's surprising to me that it's happened so quickly, because we've been writing about this and talking about it since 2010, but I didn't actually imagine that it would happen so quickly and so intensely so soon.
Well, that's why
And
I asked if the source or the sources are connected, because there are different opinions. For example, the other channeler who brought the God entity Pax said that actually this was not designed to be released now. It was really an error of a young scientist that released the virus by accident, and then she decided to release the virus, but it wasn't supposed to be now, technically based on the beast's plan. But apparently everything is according to plan. So there are different, that's why I asked if they're connected, because there are different sources, just like they could be, just like we as a soul, when we come down here, we're split, and
of
split doesn't mean
course,
only to two. So when
well, let
somebody
us,
says, yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to
No,
interrupt.
it's
Let
we're
me
having
just
conversation, like.
let me just say that there's one source, but there are many, many different filters of vibration through which that source flows.
There you go. There you go.
And just like there are different types of music that please different people for
There you
different
go.
purposes.
There you go. So when I channeled the seven elders, it's a completely different vibration of whatever that source came from, of whatever that source manifested through that different frequency, just like PAX, just like
Yeah. And
interest.
depending on who's in agreement with that, and that's the tonality and the vibration that's
Yeah,
required for them at that time.
this
So
is wonderful.
everything's valid.
Everything is valid, and that's the thing. It doesn't have to be separated. Everything
You
is
know,
valid. It's not. This is.
everything is valid. That's the beauty of creation. There's no right and wrong. It's all just a beautiful permutation of life.
I just tell you that I'm in contact with a lot of people in Israel, a part of that part of my past that are a little older, and I could see how their fear, but the fear of confusion, the fear of the unknown is taking over, and how they're acting, how they're being, and it's sad to see that, because it, you want to be there. I want to be there, and to because they're part of me, or part of my presence, part of my existence, and yet it's like almost that's their path, that's my path. There is no really an attachment to an emotion. It's just,
Well, that's your experience right now, and that's their
yeah.
experience. But I just want to share with you that genetically, there is so much resonance that's occurring within the genetic composition and blueprint of humanity at this time. So your understanding and your awakening genetically is still being felt
Mm,
within your family and
mm,
within your communities
yeah.
there as well,
Oh,
because it works at every level, every
yeah.
level.
This is beautiful. This is fascinating. Rebecca, I could have a conversation with you from here till tomorrow.
Oh, I've enjoyed it so much. Thank
I've
you.
so enjoyed that. Rebecca Dawson, the book, The Agreement, and she has other books, and I will put your what website should I put here?
It's just Rebecca Dawson, all one word, .net. Very
That's it.
simple.
That's the website I will put for publishing. Okay, so this is appearing here as we talk, and you can reach out to Rebecca. She's wonderfully to talk with, just like you could see. And thank you for being here, especially after going through that physical experience. And thank God that you're here.
Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is, but thank God that you're here. I know it can be taking a toll. And so
Thank you.
I want to thank you very much. Really, thank you, Rebecca, for...
Oh, I've enjoyed our alchemy today and the beautiful sound of your voice. So thank you.
Thank God, and thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for everybody who is being here. This is a beautiful broadcast. Abracadabra. Create what you speak. Make magic. Only love. I'm iLan Azoulai. I'll see you soon.
את רואה, כל החדר שקוף, אין אוויר כבדה הנשימה. התנועה היא התדר בגוף שמביא את הנחמה. העיניים נפגשות, נשמות מתלחשות, והדרך בעירה. מתחת לשמיכה נדבר עד הזריחה, שמש מאירה. את רואה, כבר אמרתי הכל, את חושפת את סודותיי. את טועה, לא העזתי לשאול, את אמרת זה יותר מדי. העיניים נפגשות, נשמות מתלחשות, והכל כואב פחות. השמיים רחוקים והמים עמוקים ולומדים לשחות. את רואה, עוד מעט ונגמר, בוקר בא ואת לצידי. את טועה, לא נשארת אמר, במרחב אושר מיידי. העיניים נפגשות, נשמות מתלחשות, והדרך בעירה. כאן מתחת לשמיכה, ובחוץ כבר הזריחה, שמש מאירה. את רואה, כל החדר שקוף והצליל נחלש, כשאני נרגש. עוד פציעה אל התדר שבגוף, מרחב חדש.
You're listening to Abracadabra. Create what you speak with iLan Azoulai.